Hi everyone, I'm Lowanna Grant and welcome to Media Ring Yarning, our first episode, where I'll be presenting yarns with some of the biggest names in the media industry as they discuss current trends, their personal journeys, and advice for future generations of media practitioners. But before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we are gathering today and pay my respects to all elders past, present and emerging from my people, the Wiradjuri and Arrernte people. Today's yarn has a purpose, and that is to inspire industry makers to take action, to create opportunities and to make space and to commit their support to Media Ring so that voices can be heard and respected. When we do this, our culture, our businesses and our industry will become stronger. And after decades of action, Indigenous representation on screen is now beginning to reflect community levels. But there is still underrepresentation in employment and in the Australian media industries, especially in leadership roles. But Media Ring works to change that by harnessing the ample goodwill, knowledge and experience in the media industry to develop practical measures to deliver real outcomes for Indigenous Australians. And today I'm joined by Michael Carrington, ABC's Director Entertainment Specialist, who has been a broadcast executive across many facets of production and worked in many organisations throughout the years. So first of all, thank you so much for joining me, Michael.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Lowanna. I'm pleased to be here.
So how are you personally dealing with the COVID-19 era?
I'm good. I'm really busy, probably more busy than before, strangely. Lots of Zoom meetings and team meetings keeping me off the streets.
Yeah, we love those Zoom meetings. I think I've been in one every couple of days.
And there's no time between them. You can't walk to somebody else's office. You just have to go from one meeting to the next. But I'm in good spirits. You know, I'm privileged. I work for the ABC. You know, we're an essential broadcaster. We have a big job to do in connecting with audiences all over Australia. And so I'm here and doing great. And a lot of people at the ABC are now working from home, which is extraordinary to think that, you know, a huge broadcaster like the ABC can do that. But there's about 80% of staff are actually working from home at the moment.
Mm-hmm. And how has that worked? How's everyone found that switch from being in the office and, you know, working from home? How have you found it?
I think those first 2 or 3 weeks were quite disruptive, quite disconcerting. You know, people obviously weren't set up at home necessarily to do work, and so they had to cope with, you know, not only getting equipment ready, spaces set up, but also family life had changed. So I think those few first weeks were tricky, but then we got into the flow and we realized that it hadn't broken, the chaos hadn't taken over, and that we were still broadcasting and connecting with audiences. So people started to feel very good about it.
And what implications does the COVID-19 era have for production as a whole?
Well, as you can imagine, production has virtually stopped around Australia. You know, before COVID, we were probably in production with around 12 or 13 location shoots. We had multiple studios operating. We were developing shows left, right and centre, and that all came to a grinding halt. I think we ended up with 1 or 2 studio shows that we were able to go forward with, Q&A, but we had to stop audiences coming in. And we also had, at that time, Mad as Hell, which we also stopped audiences coming in. So it was very difficult for the presenters and the crew not to react to live audiences. Was a unique experience for everyone.
Yeah, everyone trying to adapt to these new times. It's quite challenging, but it's good to see, you know, that switch. You know, there may not be audiences, but at least, you know, they could still continue to film and bring, you know, some production to audiences. Are there any more specific parts of production you think are particularly hit badly by COVID? Obviously, drama might be hit more than factual, or is that not correct? Can you just explain that a little bit more for us?
Sure. At this moment in time, it's both non-scripted and scripted production that's affected. People just can't travel around, people can't be in big groups together. So virtually all production has stopped. I guess one area that has continued to be successful and to work quite hard and almost delivering on time is animation. Animation studios quickly moved out of their fixed abode and took their equipment home And so they're still being able to produce animation, which is great. But everything else is virtually stopped apart from one or two studio shows. But we're expecting when we get to the other side of all of this that, you know, the non-scripted productions should be able to start more quickly than the scripted productions.
Right. And what opportunities are there in the COVID-19 era, do you think, for production? And do you think we could see low impact, low budget, made for digital content start to spike in volume?
Yes, is the answer. We're already seeing that. You can see audiences have shifted back to linear television, but they're also in big numbers connecting with digital platforms, iView included. And we've seen around the country people just using their spare time to create content, and a lot of that content is short content. So in the short term, I think that, you know, that will improve and increase. But in the longer term, I think, you know, as things go back to normal, that the traditional formats will return. But I'm hoping that we can leverage this experience because it's a dynamic time. You know, the boundaries are out the window, the bureaucracy's gone, people are reacting very quickly and creating materials still. So I'm hoping that we can continue that momentum going forward.
Yeah, it's amazing. I actually know a few actors who are out of work at the moment, but they've actually been producing their own short, you know, little films from their home or, you know, their backyard. So I think people are trying to adapt to these times. What do you make of the recent phenomenon of people consuming more linear television news and sticking to traditional or, I guess, respected, you know, such as free to air, ABC and SBS? I think you kind of mentioned that a little bit before.
I don't think it's a great surprise that people are turning to the national broadcaster, whether it's the ABC or SBS, to get their news and current affairs. They're obviously, in those early days, were very keen to understand what was going on. And as we move through this kind of weird time, people have now started to feel a need for entertainment. They want to laugh out loud and they want to, you know, learn about other things apart from COVID-19. So I guess the entertainment part of what we do in entertainment and specialists has really increased, and we've seen maybe 23% increase in connection to iView. So people are hunting out dramas, they're hunting out comedy shows, they're hunting out factual content. We've actually pivoted quite quickly to bring new performance-based content to iView. Lots more children's programs and lots of educational content. So we've been able to enrich iView very quickly in this period to bring those experiences closer to our audiences and to give them what they want when they want it.
That's amazing. And what advice would you give to young Indigenous producers wanting to get their content greenlit during this COVID-19 era or just in general?
I think all producers are finding it tricky at the moment, which is why we've introduced a new development fund called the Fresh Start Fund. And it's $5 million that we weren't spending because of the current crisis that we've been able to reprioritize and send that towards 5 different strands. And we're hoping that that covers existing productions that have halted, new development. We're looking for new voices, so looking for those new people that haven't worked with the ABC previously, potentially. And that covers arts, science, music, and children's. And all the information is available on our website at abc/Fresh Start.
Yep. Is there anything specific, as you mentioned, you've got this funding, is there any specific Indigenous funding for the sector that you know of or from the ABC?
Certainly from the ABC. I mean, we're absolutely committed to ensuring that there are jobs and career opportunities for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. We're part of the Reconciliation Action Plan. Part of that is to build jobs for Indigenous communities, Indigenous people. And part of the Fresh Start Fund through the innovation strand and potentially the arts digital strand, we're looking for underrepresented peoples. And so that can absolutely be anybody from the Indigenous communities. And we're looking for fresh, bold voices. We're looking for new formats, and we're looking for new ideas. We don't even know what those ideas are. We're completely open-minded at this moment in time. it's the one time I think that the ABC is actually, more open to ideas than ever before. Normally we have a commissioning process where we ask for pictures, we send out briefs, and we look for specific ideas. In this case, where the barriers are down, and we're hoping that we can inspire people to submit ideas that we don't know about.
That's awesome. It's very great news for any Indigenous people in the media industry or producers that want to put forward some ideas and maybe do some pitching.
Absolutely. We've received about 360 submissions already.
Wow.
And unfortunately, only 6 of those ideas have come from the Indigenous community. So I would say, get creating, think big. Don't be intimidated by the fact that, this is a huge corporation. The site is there. We only need a 1-page document with your idea on it, and that will go through and be evaluated. And hopefully at the other end, we can at least send some development money your way, and then hopefully at the other end, we can make something.
Great, that's really great advice. So I guess on a more personal note, with a 30-year media career, where did you start in the media?
It wasn't easy. In my day, to get in the door, you literally had to knock on the door or write letters, and that's what I did. I wrote to every broadcaster, every radio station, television station that I could get to the details for, and eventually somebody answered me and said, let's have a meeting. And it was a lovely producer at Channel 10, a lady called Penny Ann Hamilton Smith, who invited me in. And I started as a production runner. I was literally photocopying scripts and making coffee for people. Happened to be in the children's department at Channel 10. In those days, it was very, very difficult. And I would say today, the connections are so much greater. There are beautiful organizations like Media Ring who are there to help networking. The ABC runs its own mentoring schemes. And we also have lots of information on websites that you can connect with in order to help you do that hard work of knocking on doors.
And what do you think is a good way for an Indigenous person to want to get into television in 2020?
We have a department called ABC Indigenous. Now, that's not to say that it's ghettoized or that you have to go through that door, but there is a department that's specifically set up to help Indigenous people with ideas and with nurturing their careers and bringing them into organisations like the ABC. Otherwise, you can just go through all the normal portals and look at the ABC job website, where we always put up whatever the latest jobs are available, whether that's in radio, TV, news, sports, or online. There's plenty to choose from. And also, people at the ABC are not really scary. They're very happy to answer emails or telephone calls and give advice and information.
That's great. So, Michael, you've been all around the world working in different media organisations such as BBC, Warner Media, Discovery Channel, and many others. Is there anything that makes the Australian industry well placed to deal with the current crisis, and if so, why?
The Australian television industry is world class and has been working internationally for a very long time. So I think we're well placed to get back to work when this crisis is over. Interestingly, maybe the geography of Australia actually is a benefit because we're so spread out that we're kept away from each other, even on a normal basis, that may be an advantage to America or Europe, for example. But I think it's the quality of the work. We have a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of expertise, and a lot of experience in this country that will get us back to creating soon.
And Indigenous productions and subject content, such as Mystery Road, Total Control, Redfern Now, Black Comedy, for example, what makes these perspectives unique, do you think, in the Australian media landscape?
I think fundamentally it's the history. I mean, what an incredible history, whether you think, the legacy or you think even contemporary times, the perspective that Indigenous communities have on life in general is one that is really unique and distinctive. And the world wants to hear about it. I've always been struck that sometimes Australians in general hide behind their European ancestry. And that doesn't hold these days. There are so many people, so many big global networks that are bringing stories from all cultures and all parts of the world, that the Indigenous story is one that the world is very interested in telling or hearing about, rather.
Yeah.
So I think that's distinctive and unique, and we should do more of it.
Yeah, definitely. What are the pathways for Indigenous employment? How would an Indigenous person find work at places such as the ABC or even Screen Australia, for example?
We publish jobs on our website. We also run internships and cadetships, sometimes specifically for Indigenous people. The ABC, as part of its general business, is always looking to work in partnership with Indigenous production companies or even other businesses. So location facilities, for example. So all of that information is available on our website, through the procurement website, or through the jobs website.
Great. And Michael, what does the ABC look like post-COVID?
We will be healthy, excited, dynamic, faster footed, and we'll probably be on iView.
Right. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Michael. It's been really great to chat. As Michael mentioned, there are initiatives available such as Fresh Start. The applications do close on June 12th. So if you are keen or you know anyone that is keen, please make sure you get the word out through the Courier Grapevine and get those applications in by the deadline, as I mentioned, June 12th. And you can find more information on this at abc.net.au/fresh start. And everyone, please stay tuned next week for more Media Ring Yarning. But for now, I'm Lowanna Grant. Take care and see you next week.